Hello friends, and welcome to episode 40 of From the Van. It is a now over-the-hill podcast from my van, where I have conversations with people who have relationships with residential vehicles. I'm your host, Marty Benson, and today's episode features Megan Cable, who I met at the Van Life app launch event in New Cuyama, California early this year, and I've been trying to get her on the podcast ever since. Our paths have been sort of not quite crossing. We almost got her when she was in Bend, Oregon, and we were passing through, but we had an appointment to make it to in Corvallis, so we didn't see her then. And our paths finally crossed when she came down to Southern California this fall. We've gotten to spend a good amount of quality time with her, including the conversation of this podcast. I hope that you enjoy it. Megan is an accountant working remotely, traveling on the road in her second Sprinter van that she built out earlier this year. And during her build process, Colette and I were lusting after the bright green color that she used on the inside. So I hope you enjoy episode 40 of From the Van featuring Megan Cable. Alrighty, Megan, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, this better be good. I clipped my fingernails for this shit.
You did? What about your toenails?
I did that yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I staggered for some reason. I don't know why.
It's a lot all at once.
So you can cut me in our sleep.
So welcome to the podcast. We've been trying to get you on for 6-7 months or something like that. We've just been missing each other.
Crossed.
Yeah. You were in Bend, I think, when we went. We were headed over to Corvallis.
You were like going through to Portland, and I think I was going backpacking the weekend you were coming through, so I was off the grid.
That's right. It didn't work. Yeah. That's great. Where are you from?
Oakhurst is a small town outside Yosemite in Central California.
Yeah, that's a hot place to be from. Is that cool, being from there?
I love going back there.
Okay.
Like, I definitely have an appreciation for it now that I never had growing up there. Like, it was a small town. I could run wait to get out. But I really love that area now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the town where we went to that really awesome vegan sandwich place?
Vegan bacon.
Oh, it was so good. It was like all entirely vegan. They had a bunch of really good
sandwiches. It's called like the Love Cafe or something? Yeah.
That place, I dream about that place often.
So the first time I'd ever been there was when I went home this last time. Actually when I was living at home for the first 6 months this year. I don't know when that popped up, but I was like, vegan place in Oakhurst? This is new. There's a vegan place and there's a brewery that are really good. And a coffee shop.
Yeah, we did.
We did?
What's it called?
Southgate.
Oh, that's right. We did go there.
Yeah.
We went there.
Yeah, their beer was good.
And
we had a good time in Oakhurst.
That was last October. It was the first time that we ever got knocked on.
Oh, in Oakhurst?
Yeah.
No.
We were trying to read the rules, and we drove out to Glacier Point.
Oh, yeah.
And we went for a nice hike out there, and we saw a bunch of people. It was dark, and we saw a bunch of people were still hanging around.
Yeah.
We were like, well, everybody else is trying it. Let's just try it.
Oh.
And we were naked.
Yeah.
And this guy who's like 25 years old starts knocking on the one of the rangers or something.
Just a random 25-year-old.
Starts knocking on the thing, and I open it. I'm putting my clothes on. I open the door. It took us a little while to get to the door, and he goes, "Were you planning on sleeping here?" And we're like, "Yeah, if that's cool." He's like super sheepish, terrified, like mortified. He's like, because I think he knew what was going on.
This is the first time he's ever.
He's like a dog, and there's like some weird stuff
He's growling.
It's like these guys are definitely having sex. That's why it took him so long to get to the door.
And
it's not that far from them.
He's like,
it shouldn't have taken so long.
He's like, well, it's not cool.
And we're like,
okay, cool. And we hadn't been drinking or anything, so it was like, and he told us where we could go out into forest land, national forest land, and park.
Because you can go like right outside the gate.
Exactly. That's what we did.
Everybody did, really.
I know there's like a whole line of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so pretty. The sky, it was like super starry that night.
Yeah.
So it was awesome.
Yeah. Yosemite's amazing. And like growing up there, I maybe went once a year, which is like more than most people.
Right.
But everyone was like, oh, did you like go there all the time?
Uh-huh.
Just like, no, not really. Also, there's a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Like, I would much rather enjoy, like, a lot of areas in the Sierra Nevada outside of the park and on, like, Eastern Sierra.
I feel the same way about Banff. and not that we've seen much of Zion, but Zion.
Yeah.
It's like, they don't allow dogs anywhere, which is super problematic for
all
us.
national parks.
And like, I think that Canmore's just as good as Banff.
Well, Banff
Ivans
allowed
is just
dogs.
as good as...
Yeah, I've heard Alberta is like awesome because it's a lot more reasonable. There's not as many people. It's just as beautiful. Yeah. I'm hoping to maybe get up there next year.
I liked Yoho National Park the best. That place was awesome.
Where did you go after you left Oakhurst? When you got out of... Did you leave right when you got out of high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to college at Sonoma State, and then I moved to San Francisco after that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I lived in San Francisco for like a little over 8 years until I moved into a van in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're 2 years and change in a van, and this is your second one, right?
Yeah.
What'd you have first?
170, so like the longer Sprinter.
Okay.
It was an old shuttle bus, so it was like literally had like the doors that open up to the side, like the long skinny doors.
Oh, hilarious!
And it had like windows all around. But it was a longer Sprinter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have the thing where you could open the passenger door from the...
No. But it was like automatic, which literally made getting in and out of the van so easy because you could press a button and it would just like open and like stealthily just like squeezing right in there. Like airport pickups were the best.
Yeah.
But,
so you're in a 144 now?
Yeah. So
what was the incentive to downsize?
I was just never super comfortable driving the longer wheelbase, and I spend so much time in cities and like urban areas that I wanted to really like feel comfortable in it.
Okay.
And just like traveling solo, I don't really need all the space. So like I was traveling with a partner before, and I think doing that in a 144 would be a lot harder, but I felt like I could get everything I needed on 144, and I'm super happy with it. Like, I love being able to park in parking spots and, like, go anywhere, and, like, I can actually parallel park that thing. Like, the 170, I really struggled with that. So that was just really important to me.
Cool. What motivated your move into the van in 2017?
Really just, like, looking for a change and, like, being ready to get out of getting out of San Francisco. Like my ex and I at the time, like both just kind of knew we didn't want to settle down in San Francisco. Van life was honestly kind of his dream. Like he had the van when we met, and so he had this dream of doing all 50 states in a year. We kind of decided we'd do it together. So we left. We decided we were gonna sell everything. Like I got rid of my apartment, sold all my stuff. We moved into the van and traveled together for about 15 minutes.
That didn't last long.
And covered 40 states in total.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
So we kind of quickly realized that we didn't really want to like just go and check the box of like trying to hit all 50 states. We're like, well, let's try and like enjoy it along the way.
That's with our most recent trip. That was one of the main limitations that I wish we had sort of changed.
Yeah.
And I really, I don't regret it. But yeah, we did like 22 states and 4 Canadian provinces in 7.5
Just
weeks.
a little bit, yeah.
You know?
But it's like you had to do all of that to like really know where you want to go back and like,
right.
I guess, learn the ways of like traveling in that style to know that maybe you do want to slow down more.
Right.
Yeah. Do you guys have hopes of like, I guess, not being permanently in Encinitas?
Yeah, I mean, for both of us, the holy grail is like full-blown remote work. The trick is that Colette specifically, her aspirations are in live theater, which requires rehearsal time.
Yeah.
And, you know, temporal geographical commitment to
but
places.
like 2 months max.
I was going to say, but they like project based, right? So like you could go somewhere and be there for 2 months and then figure out whatever's next.
Which you could spend 2 months anywhere, really.
Totally.
I think.
Oh, I would love to have to spend 2 months in Chicago or whatever.
I think that would be a really cool way to do it, because then you're actually like going to a new place where you actually get to spend time and like the way I've learned to travel this summer has just been very similar to that of like, you know, I spend a week or 2 weeks in a place, not 2 months, but it's really, I feel like a different way to like experience places versus just like passing through.
Yeah, and I just have to I'm still super new, so I'm just, right now all my connections are in like San Diego area.
Yeah.
We're doing a 2-month
like
trip
being able to use your network.
We're going to spend like 2 months in LA. for a project that I got. So we're expanding slowly.
So it'll be a little test.
But it would be awesome to be able to do jobs like in Chicago or here or New York or the Midwest or who knows.
What do you feel like you would miss about your lifestyle and this van here if you do more of that?
Probably our friends.
Yeah, I mean, we have a real network here.
Yeah.
My family's here. I grew up here.
Her parents both live within an hour and a half. My sister lives here.
Mm-hmm.
I've been living here on and off for the last 12 years. And, you know, I'm on the Traffic and Public Safety Commission.
Which you love.
I'm really engaged in local civic activities and stuff. And that's my shit. And so it's sort of like until Colette gets well known enough in this place to start commanding gigs elsewhere.
Yeah.
And the same for me. It's until I become some sort of authority on the things that I've been working on and can do speaking engagements elsewhere.
Take that other places.
Right. Then you sort of have to stay and do that. What has your trajectory? When did you finish the van? Like June or something?
May. Yeah. And then so if we finished the van in May. I moved in June, but was like staying in my parents' driveway for June, and then I left July 1st, like on the road this summer.
And you have some homies there that helped you build it out?
Yeah, so Adam and Vanessa helped me build it out. Heartwood Custom Vans is now their van conversion business. Yeah, cool. So they moved back to Canada for now and are doing van conversions up there.
Nice.
Yeah. But they're just awesome, and they were some of the first people I met on the road, just like very serendipitous that it ended up working out that I reached out to them to see if they could help me, and timing worked out. And
they just came and stayed at your folks' house with you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and they had a 3-month cedar who was with them. And a dog. They had a full van.
That's interesting, yeah.
Very full van.
Are they must be in a 4-season van.
Yeah.
And is that what they're building? Is that sort of what their deal is?
I mean, they've done kind of all sorts of different things. They've built 2 or 3 Sprinters, and they just did a Transit this summer. The Transit they just did was like super nice, had all the appliances, like very high end versus what they did for themselves and what they did for me. I feel like he's very middle ground. Like Adam's just a really great craftsman, so he has like the skills to make it look really nice.
Your van is beautiful.
Yeah.
We were freaking the whole time you were building it. We were watching and we were freaking about the green. Like,
yeah.
It's so nice to see people do colors. Like all the white. I'm so tired of the white.
Colette's very adamant about
colors. Like I want blue or green or purple or like just a color in there.
And it's funny because as like Adam was working on my van, Vanessa was kind of like, well, I think I want to do like a color in our van, or like you're getting like a nicer version of what we got, and now I'm ready like for an upgrade in here.
Yeah.
Which they ended up selling their van, and they're going to build out another one next year too.
Oh,
but
nice.
Yeah, it was a really fun process, and it was really helpful to go through the process with both like professionals and friends, because they were like 100% my partner in like talking through every little detail that you have to make and like figure out like what you want. So that was awesome.
Cool. So since you left Oakhurst, what have you done? Where have you been? What's your pace and journey looked like?
I immediately went up to Idaho for Open Roads Fest. Okay. And then after that, it was kind of a quick trip in Idaho. I really wanted to like go back and spend more time in Idaho, but I just didn't have time. So then I went to Bend after that. I ended up spending probably 3 or 4 weeks there in total, with a short trip like out to Portland in the middle. But my best friend's bachelor party was there, so that was the impetus of like, I mean, bachelor parties and weddings were like how I pinpointed my whole travel route over the summer of like, I need to be here by this point, so like we'll figure out how to get there. I also had been to Bend and just like knew that I loved it, so I wanted to like make sure that I had more time to spend there. So I did about a month in Oregon, and then came back into California, and I spent probably about a month in California, like doing family trips and visiting friends. And then in September, the end of September, I got out to Utah and Colorado for the month of October. And then I came back for my last wedding, and then I came down here to Southern California.
Cool.
Yeah. So I haven't gone that far.
Well, I want to go back to the whole, like, the purpose for the van. So you, and I'm not trying to make you relive anything weird, but you move into the van with the man. Mm-hmm. You spend 15 months traveling around, and that ends.
Yeah.
You kept the van?
He kept the van.
He kept the van.
It was his van.
And so what did you do? Did you go home or?
I moved home.
Okay.
Yeah. So I moved home, like booked a flight the next day, flew home, and just like had no idea what I was doing. I was very set on like, I am not doing another van because like we had been struggling a little bit, like trying to figure our own thing out, and like being in the van was a really big part of that. And I was definitely at a point where I felt like I was ready to settle down somewhere. Just like we actually had plans to move somewhere, so like that was inside of like we're getting out of the van and we're moving there. And it was just like I mean, it's difficult to travel with another person, and that was a big part of it. And coming out of that relationship was just like a really rough time. So like I moved home with the intention of like, I'm gonna live at home for like a month, and then like I'll get an apartment, I'll figure out where I want to live, I'll be applying to jobs. Like it was also then like over the holidays, so this was like a year ago, so then it was like Christmas and like all these other things were going on. I was applying to jobs I was just not excited about, and just felt like I was forcing it a lot of like needing to figure out what my next step was, but I just like wasn't fully there yet. Like I knew in that moment that like it was a clean slate. Like I had no job, I had no place to live, I had, you know, a few boxes of stuff. Like I had 2 suitcases of stuff in the living room, and like I knew it was a clean slate. I just like didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was looking at moving to a bunch of different cities and applying to jobs, and it just like didn't feel right. And that's ultimately what kind of ended up leading me back to the van. Yeah. At the time I was kind of like, oh, I'll just like stay and live at home for the year, like however long it's going to take me. And then my parents were kind of like, oh, well, we're going to put our house on the market, and like a blessing in disguise for sure, because if I would have lived at home for the rest of the year, I would have gone crazy. So that just kind of made me realize that I need to be able to like figure out how to stand on my own 2 feet again. And the van was just a way to do that. Like I just really wanted to nest. And I knew at that point that I couldn't do it in an apartment or like somewhere else, because I just wasn't ready to like commit to a lease or something. So the van could give me that. So I like kind of turned it around, and then was actually excited to build a van that was completely my own. And so that was just kind of like a healing process in its own, to like be able to build that and build the vision that I wanted. Since the last van that I lived in like wasn't something that I had designed or built or had any part in creating. So then that just gave me the ability to like have that space that was my own and like only my own. But still the flexibility to like figure the rest out, like whatever that ended up meaning. Sure.
And so when I met you in, I think it was March or April.
Yeah. The end of March.
Nukuyama, the Van Life app launch
gathering. Yeah.
Where were you in the like thought process at that point?
So I had bought my van 2 days before.
Okay. Oh.
And hadn't even picked it up yet. So I still had to like go back and get it. Like the transition of like, I'm not going to live in a van anymore to like, I'm going to convert my own van was just like really quick. So like it went from like, that's not part of my life anymore to, oh, Adam and Vanessa, you can come out. We are going to build it. I have 2 weeks to find a van, buy the van, and then they were going to be at my house like a week after that gathering to start. So I was like very much in the middle of like trying to catch up to like what was happening at that point.
Right.
Yeah. And I was there camping in my Subaru because I didn't have a van yet. But at that point, I just found out that I was going to do another conversion.
You were certain that you were going to do it. So you were there. That's cool.
Yeah.
Very good. So you're an accountant.
Yeah.
And that's mainly what you're doing? You are remote. You're travel wherever you want to for the most part. Yeah. Unless all your friends are getting married.
Exactly. So in between weddings, I sometimes work. Yeah, in January or February of this year, kind of around the same time that I decided I was going to convert the van, at the same time where I was just like feeling really lost with jobs and like applying to stuff, and it just like didn't feel right. I kind of just decided to start freelancing because I wanted to start making an income again, and ultimately I was just really bored and like looking for something to do, and I needed a distraction, so I started freelancing and just kind of decided that I was gonna run with that for this year. So I started kind of making the intention that that was going to be my job for the year. So I started getting clients. It just kind of took off really fast. I'm doing the exact same thing basically that I was doing in San Francisco before I left, but for myself and with the intention of being able to work with companies that I want to work with.
Cool.
Yeah, I just got really burnt out in like San Francisco in the startup tech world, and there's such a culture of, you know, like where do you work and how much do you work? And if you're not working a lot, then you're not doing anything, you know, worthwhile. And it's really hard to find both like a company and a community and like all the things that have more value in like a work-life balance. And I think I just kind of knew that was something that I wanted. And the technology companies there, it's just like there's a lot of people doing a lot of really cool things, but a lot of it just doesn't feel like it matters. Like you're fixing first world problems, and there's just like so many bigger problems out there that I just had like a really hard time connecting with that.
That's something that I can really relate to, that I've super struggled with, is that like I don't know how your education went, but when you go to law school, they don't teach you to be a lawyer. They teach you to pass the bar exam. And then you have to go be somebody's underling for a few years before you actually learn how to be a lawyer. Or you risk your bar license by just going out and doing it, right? But either of those, in order for you to figure out how to make a living without working 70 hours a week, takes several years of working 70 hours a week. And I'm just not willing to do that. And it's so weird, because my new favorite thing to ask people when I'm talking to people who live in vans is about this perception of us as other people. And it's so funny that like there's the same sort of shame in the corporate world, right? I know, it's coming from every direction. Right? It's like, you should be doing this instead, whether it's, you know, I don't know if you came out of school knowing how to do your job, but I certainly didn't. And
like, how are you supposed to know? Like, school literally teaches you nothing these days. Like, it gives you a basis to, like, maybe have some information that you can figure out how to apply later, but it doesn't teach you, like, real-world skills. And, like, accounting, or, like, my career path was actually very similar probably to a lawyer's, because, like, I started in public accounting, so I went to work for, like, one of the big four. It's actually, like, I see it as one of the best decisions I ever made, because it really did, like, lay the foundation for not just learning how to do the work, but, like, how to approach work, because it really does teach you to, like, be really resourceful, and you work hard, and you have to work for other people, and you have to do stuff you don't like, and you work really long hours, like 80 hours a week, but it definitely just like taught me so much during that time. You get exposed to so many different things that you would never like see in any other job, and you also get to start with like 40 other people that are your age that just graduated college. It's like a whole new college class that you're like now going to work with. So like we worked really hard and we had a lot of fun.
So you're telling me I did fuck up?
No.
Oh well.
You could be a remote some kind of lawyer. That
I just think that like I
happens.
wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now if I hadn't put my time in doing some of that other stuff in the last decade.
Cool. Well, what's your outlook on the van now? Are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I am. I'm enjoying myself. It's still open-ended. Like, the intention has been to find a home base for me. That's really what I would be excited about. Like, I would really love to be rooted in a community somewhere. Still trying to just kind of figure out where that is. So I feel like throughout the whole summer, like, I've always had a place in my mind of, like, this is where it is, and I mull that over, and I, like, see how that feels, and I say it out loud to people, and then it either, like, passes, and I move on to another place, or, like, it sticks for a little longer than others. But yeah, I think there's part of me that feels like my life's a little bit on hold while I do this.
Oh, really?
And I think that's a lot. I think that's very different than a lot of the people that I've met that are doing this, because they feel like this is freedom for them and this is now letting them live the life they want to live. And I just don't. I guess that's just not quite where I sit, because
It's enabling you to shop for a location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's enabling me the life that's right for me right now, but I just don't feel like this is the life that's right for me forever. And I still want to keep the van forever, and I want to travel in it. It's just like my ideal would be to have a home base to go back to, and to be able to take extended trips in the van and like work remotely during all of that.
I feel you. I mean, that's the thing that Encinitas is for me.
Yeah.
Really, you know what I mean? And like, at the moment, I don't feel like I need a yard.
Yeah.
So, like, being here in a van most all of the time is fine. The joke I always tell people is if you got to be stuck somewhere, this is the best place in the world to be stuck.
Yeah,
we're not mad at it.
So,
yeah, and it totally changes your perspective on, like, what you do need. Like, I don't need a big house or a big anything anywhere. It's just, like, a small place to call home and to make my own, and ideally I'd love to like buy something and note it and be able to rent it out when I'm not there, and you know, the dream list still goes on.
Yeah. So what I'll get to that question that I love asking. I've had so many conversations, every one of them a little bit different or drastically different, with people who are living in vans about the stigma and the misunderstanding of a lot of people.
Yeah.
How have your like friends and family, loved ones sort of been along this ride? You've been doing it for longer than a lot of people.
Yeah. My parents are as supportive as they can be, despite the fact that they hate that I'm traveling alone.
Yes.
If I moved to a city and lived in an apartment alone somewhere else, I'd probably hate that too. But I'm an only child. They have a little leeway to like be a little overprotective. So they don't love it, but they knew from the beginning that they weren't going to be able to tell me no. So they got on board. And doing the van build at their house this time, I think really helped them kind of like see the process and come around to the idea a little bit more. All my friends have been similar. I think they're all supportive, but a lot of them don't get it. So it's hard to relate and really talk to them about it in a way of, I think they're just kind of waiting until I'm done. And then, you know, once my life gets back on track, then, you know, maybe we'll get each other again.
That phase will be over.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it's different people have reacted in different ways. You know, everyone's supportive to my face. Some are supportive more underneath that as well. You know, and it's fun. Like there are people in my life that have just been like really excited for me. And it's nice to like get that response as well. I think honestly what helped my mom come around was just like a lot of her friends are very like outdoorsy and RV people and travel, like big travelers. Like my parents just don't travel a lot. And I think they started to be like, oh, this is so cool. Like what Megan's doing. And then she kind of was like, oh yeah, you know, like you're right. Like, okay. Like I guess I could be proud of her. Like this is cool. I still worry about her, but like, this is cool.
Sometimes you get good advice from somebody and it's just not the person that you want to hear the advice from. And I feel like this is just like that. It's like all that needs to happen is that needs to be endorsed by somebody else who you don't perceive as weird. Here, I gotta restart this.
Set up some of your friends to plant that seed. But I mean, you know, like this community in itself is like pretty awesome, and you meet a ton of people, and that's been a really cool experience as well. And I've met a ton of people that I feel like will be lifelong friends. Within this world as well.
Yeah, that's something that I wanted to talk to you about too, is like I think we were talking about this with Alexa. So it's so funny to me how Instagram, which so often is this like vapid, superficial platform on which people are trying to pretend like their lives are pretty, you know, it very often, at least for me in this context, is not at all that. You know what I mean? I've met you once before you came into town last 2 weeks ago or whatever. And we've been communicating on this platform. And there are several people like that I don't know, but I'm really excited about. And I do feel like I know you, you know? Just because we've been like chatting and shit.
You chat about different things.
And there's this shared experience that's a little weird that sort of creates some solidarity.
Right? It's like an immediately level up of like the thing that we have in common is like a big thing to like ground that relationship on. It's so cool when you like, and it does, it's wild to like run into some people that you haven't seen in 5 months, but you've sort of been keeping tabs on or whatever. And you're enthusiastic about whatever they're doing and stuff. It's really interesting to me that because everybody, I remember people saying, "Oh, this community," and I'm like, "What the fuck? That's not a thing." But it is. It is. It really is a thing, and like it's an incredible community for sure. And I try to avoid saying like my van friends versus like my other friends because I don't mean to like create separation there. But like I talk to friends from San Francisco that I've known forever all the time, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm like going to get drinks with a friend," and they're like, "Oh, how do you know this friend?" I'm like, well, I actually don't. Like, I've never met them, but, like, we've talked online, and then they think I'm crazy, like, oh, so now you're, like, going to meet this person out that you've never met and you met online? Like, is that safe? I'm like, yeah,
People
it's
do
just,
that
like,
all the
different.
time.
A lot of people
I know that is online dating, but, like, I'm telling you where I'm going, I'm safe. But it's just, like, most people don't get to experience that, so like they're just confused by it, where it really is, I think, a special thing of like you have this common ground and you get to like have these conversations over the internet for like a while, and then like you do feel like you know the person, and then you get excited to like meet them in person. And I'm not someone that like necessarily connects with people immediately. Like if I meet them, like I'm a little introvert, I'm a little quiet around like new people. So I think it's been a cool element for me too of just
to break
like,
in before you meet them.
you kind of break it in, and then you're like, I think like we would really connect. And I also just feel really selfish with my time, and I don't necessarily always want to spend my time with like a lot of other people that I don't know, like
for sure.
And so I feel like it allows me to find a nice balance in that of like, oh, I want to meet new people tonight, or I want to spend time with people, and I feel like I kind of know this person, we're going to hit it off. It's not going to feel, I don't want to say like a waste, because I don't think time spent with other people is ever like a waste. Like you always learn something from other people, but just as you get older, you like value the relationships that are already in your life and decide which ones those that you like want to spend more time in.
What was I going to say? Do you feel isolation often?
Not often. Sometimes. Like, I think I've really found the line between being lonely and being alone this year. And I really like being alone, and like I went into this year just kind of being like, I'm going to be really selfish, and it's the year that I get to do whatever I want. And like, I kind of started the year feeling like I had no idea what I wanted. So a really big piece of the van and just kind of going into this year and personal growth has been to like figure out what I really do like and what I want to do and what I want to do more of and how I want to spend my time. And a lot of that has been enjoying my time alone, and I've been happy with that. There's definitely times where I do get lonely, and I'll spend a week, and I'm like, I haven't really talked to another person in like days and days, so I should like go find some other people to connect with.
Oh, the thing I was going to say was, I guess the difference between the Instagram, the van Instagram stranger that you go out to meet, and the online dating person that you go out to meet, is that even if there was some sort of like potential attraction thing, there's no like immediate ulterior motive, because you're 400 miles away and you might not see this person. And if you do, it might be 6 months or 3 weeks or whatever. And so there's like this sort of embedded security in the
Yeah.
fact that it's not like somebody who's like ready to get
Totally,
something
and that's
from
kind
you.
of a
Friend
cool
version.
thing.
Yeah.
Version.
Which is like what's I feel like so hard about dating is because it's really hard to like get to know someone with like a bunch of pressure of like, is this a thing? Is this not a
Yeah.
thing? And like I haven't figured out how to date like being in the van at all. But it's like this it's even more amplified because it's like we have to figure out if this thing is like I'm leaving. So like
Mhm.
is it not? Is it worth me staying?
Mhm.
Probably not. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
I also haven't really been in a place where I'm like trying to date most of this year. But
Right. That's another thing that's part of the van experience that the two of us haven't really had to confront yet. Hopefully we don't have to.
Hope so.
Yeah, hopefully not.
I'm impressed that you guys survive in this little thing here.
It's a pretty tiny little spot. Colette is one of the most like emotionally intelligent people that I've ever met,
Mhm.
and she's not like
Say more.
she's not super like emotionally stable, but the difference is what I mean is not to say that she's like some sort of like calm mutant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
What
no,
I'm
not
saying
at
is that
Not at all.
she, unlike anybody that I've ever known before, she's able to recognize when she's being a dick. And when I'm being a dick, she doesn't
call you
pull
out
any
on it.
punches. You know what I mean? She doesn't let me get away with being
Yeah.
a dick. But if she's being a dick, she acts like that and then recognizes it. And she lets me be a dick, but then I have to pay for it. You know what I mean?
And you'll eventually
I
come
think-
around
yeah, I
and
think-
apologize
and
for
apologize
it.
too. And so
Yeah.
that's a give and take that I've never had before in the dose that I have now. Anyway.
Yeah.
And you know that's another thing about living in Encinitas is that like we just got the most rain. It rained for like in the last 2.5 weeks cumulatively. It
This
rained
is, I
like
think,
almost
the
3
second day of
days.
sunshine I've seen since I've been here. It's like, oh, go to San Diego
Never
for the sun
happens
in
this.
winter. Yeah.
Never
Hasn't been the
happens.
case.
Mm,
Yeah. I think it's also the fact that you guys have a big community here.
Yes.
So you both have your own thing going on. You both have people to see and things to do. And that was a really hard thing for me about traveling with a partner. Just like being, that felt really isolating because
Really?
we were out traveling all across the country and it was just the two of us.
Mhm.
And as much as we were both trying to like stay connected to our families and communities back home,
mhm,
I'm very much like an in-person
mhm.
community type of person to really get like the right fulfillment from that. So like I was FaceTiming and like having calls with friends and family, but I felt really isolated from them. And that was tough because we just put a lot of pressure on each other to like be everything that the other person needed, you know?
2 questions, and I'm going to forget one of them when I ask the other one. How far is Oakhurst from San Francisco?
4 hours?
Okay, so your parents, your family, and anybody that you grew up with that you cared to stay in touch with was generally in striking distance. Like you could go see them
Yeah.
every couple of months or whatever if you felt like it, right?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
my people were all in California. Like most all my best friends now are in San Francisco. My parents are still in Oakhurst. And I have like, you know, a few other friends and family that are scattered, but it was like mostly in California or West Coast.
Is or was that guy an introvert too?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
They're kind of similar, like introverted, some extroverted tendencies,
Yeah.
but
Okay. Because Colette and I didn't, like when we traveled across the country, it was just like, I feel like we had people in places.
We saw a lot of people.
But then also, like, we're the sort of people that, like, we walk into a bar and just start
just wanna,
hammering it
like,
up with
chat
somebody.
whoever. Yeah.
And so I feel like that makes this whole thing easier for
Yeah.
us.
I think the difficulty for me was the lack of consistency because, like, when I was traveling around the country, it was a really cool experience to be able to, like, stop and see people that I hadn't seen in a really long time and spend, like, 3 days with them rather than, like, you know, a day or, like, a short visit. Or you really do get to spend quality time with people that are in your life that maybe you haven't seen that much of
Right.
over the years. But it was really, I think, the lack of consistency in those relationships that was difficult, because it's kind of like everyone's excited to see you. You're kind of telling your story and like what you've been doing over and over.
Wow,
He's tearing that thing up.
Yeah. It's like the whole historical small talk sort of thing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like
it felt
familiar
like
small
a
talk.
lot of familiar small talk, because you haven't seen a lot of these people in so long. So it's like that's kind of where you start. And I just, I think that's kind of what made me feel a little isolated, because I didn't feel like I was really getting past like small talk or first base with like all these people that we were hanging out and seeing, because it's just like they're not people that are there every day.
Yeah. Well, and you did it for 15 months. We did it for 7.5 weeks. That's a big difference too.
Yeah.
I imagine that our experience would change if we made it a lot longer. Okay, so you're gonna go see family in Orange County, and then be in Southern California for a little bit. Do you have like other places that you're aiming at?
So, like, going into this winter is kind of like the first time that I haven't had a plan, and it's, I guess, a little strange, and I'm trying to, like, embrace it a little bit, but also, like, I like to have a plan, so I just don't like to feel like I'm floating. So, like, I feel like if I have a plan, I'm fine with it if it changes, but I kind of want to know what I'm doing. So, right now, I'm kind of going to probably wait out the winter as far as just, like, do my thing, hang out with friends and family, be working from wherever. I'm really excited to potentially like continue to travel next summer, and like go do a bunch of the stuff that I didn't get a chance to this summer. When I originally moved into the van, I kind of thought that maybe by the end of this year I'd be settling down somewhere. And again, like I think that was just the plan in my head, knowing that it would likely change, but to kind of feel like I had something to tell myself and also to like tell friends and family. I think a lot of my friends and family were kind of worried when I told them I was going to like build out a van, just because they knew kind of what I was coming out of, and that at the point when I moved out of the last van, like I was just very unhappy.
Sure.
And so I think they kind of put a lot of that onto this new van, just a little worried about me, and like also being like, "Man, you're going to do it by yourself? Like, are you sure you want to do this?" And so, yeah, I'm kind of going to wait out the winter. I think I'm going to head back towards Colorado in the spring. I spent some time in like the Grand Junction Fruita area in October.
Okay.
Just really loved it. Right now, that's kind of the place in my mind where it's like, I think I could move there. Like, I wish I would have had more time to spend there. So I think I'm going to head back out in the spring and just spend more time there, see how it feels. So that kind of means this winter, mostly hanging around California until the end of January. I'm going to do some house sitting in Reno in February. And then probably beginning of March, I'm going to start heading, maybe spend some time in Utah and then head back towards Colorado.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. What's the draw? What's sexy about Grand Junction for you?
I think about Grand Junction, the city itself, there's...
How big is it?
Oh, God.
I've ridden a train through it, but I've never actually been there.
I mean, it's like, it's smaller than Denver. It's maybe the second biggest city in Colorado, though. The draw for me is that it's really central to things that I want to explore still, being Colorado and Utah. That's kind of been like my list of priorities in the next place is that it's close to things that I still want to go do and like take weekend trips, which are reasons like Idaho and Oregon have both been like really high on my list previously. There's an airport there, which is just huge because especially if I'm moving somewhere where it's not necessarily close to like most of my people, that I can still go visit them and that they can visit me. I have a friend there who is awesome, and she's someone that I would love to live close to, and I feel like if I know one person there, then that just like really changes the dynamic. Versus a downside to some of the other places that I've been thinking about is just that I literally know no one there, so want to like go start over somewhere, and it's affordable. That's like probably the box that it's checked that the other places I've thought about just haven't. That's crazy.
I spend so much time thinking about, because policy is my thing, I spend so much time thinking about the implications of the van with respect to affordable housing and population growth and all of that.
Do you think it's a solution to it?
I didn't. I thought that it was a cute thing that I could do for a little while that allows me to live a little bit more frugally and travel a little bit more. The dog is a huge impetus for the van for me. Because
to be able to travel and have him with you, or
it's like if I want to go surfing up in 30 or 40 miles away for the day, I need somebody to swing by the house to get the dog.
Okay.
Then take him for a walk or something.
Go anywhere.
But if you got the van, you can take the dog. The van's totally outfitted so that he's safe between 40 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Out surfing, and then you can take him for a walk before and after, and you don't have to.
And so, I mean, I love stuff about LA, and I love stuff about Encinitas, and they're very different things, and I don't want to be in either of those places all the time. And so, especially being a person who did not have a car for 8 years.
And now you live in one.
Yeah. And I spoke in favor of our safe parking program that's going to go in. That's run by Jewish Family Services, a nonprofit that's going to do that for people who, unlike us, who are not electively houseless. And one of the council members was like, I was surprised that I was so curious to hear what you were going to have to say because you're so anti-car. And the thing I wish I had said to him that I didn't say to him was, dude, I'm so anti-car that I believe if you own one, you ought to live in it. Right? Because otherwise it's taking up too much space.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think that it was a solution, but then I had a friend of mine from college, Ben Carter, who we got to hang out with when we were on our road trip, and I haven't seen him in 20 years or whatever, 17 years or something. And I had him on the podcast. He's an equity attorney in Louisville, Kentucky. Okay. And he kind of changed my mind about the housing portfolio. Like, I was pretty anti-tiny houses because the more efficient way, and I still believe this part, the more efficient way to live is sharing walls and ceilings,
like apartments.
And floors. Apartments is the most efficient way for people to live. And so putting a little tiny house on a tiny plot, especially if you're doing it out in rural areas where most people are doing it so far, requires that you have a 200 square foot house and a 100 square foot vehicle to get you in and out of the.
Yeah, you're driving out there.
And so it's like you're not doing anything minimal. You're just choosing to live in a small space. So if you're going to build, but he changed my mind in talking about, like, this isn't the van thing. I don't believe is going to be a long-term, massive systemic solution to the thing. But insofar as we have 3.5 parking spaces per vehicle in the United States, and we have an incredible inadequacy of affordable housing, the market's changed, and now people are using those parking spaces as housing. And so it's like, if you want to change it, then you got to have this massive civic shift. And if you don't have that civic shift, you can't be mad that people are being innovative.
Yeah, like you can't be mad at people because you aren't doing what they're doing, or that you're potentially jealous of what they get out of it,
or because the government. That's on the micro level, but on the macro level, it's like because the government isn't willing to make the difficult choices. To move away from car dependence.
There's not a better solution,
right? And they're not willing. And they're not willing to make the difficult choices to implement small footprint, affordable apartment complexes in density all over the United States. I was like, okay, well, the reason it's a solution is because it's one that I can make for myself. Right? I don't, even if I got all my friends together, we can't pool enough money to change the local public policy to let us build a 4-story building of 1 bedrooms and studios, and we can't fund the financing of that either. And so, it's a solution. It's a small one. It's a very narrow part of the portfolio.
It's no longer a ring.
Oh no!
It's a you.
Well, it worked for 2 episodes.
Horseshoe now.
We kept him quiet for a little bit.
Here, he's still going.
I can still chew on it.
Took the small chokeable pieces away from him.
Well, we complimented your van, and you told me that it was 144, but we haven't really talked about it. It's a Sprinter.
It's a Sprinter.
What year?
2015.
Okay.
I bought it used.
All right.
It's dark gray, not the average white. Yeah, I don't know what else is relevant about it.
What do you got in it? You got solar on top?
I got solar on top. I have 400 amp hours battery.
Lithium?
No.
Okay.
The cheaper ones.
Me too.
Yeah. I have 16-gallon water tank, electric pump, very nice fridge. That was a splurge for myself. High bed platform in the back that gives me storage in what I call my garage underneath for toys and activities and stuff, because everything I do own is in that van. I have everything from my sewing machine to my bike, so there's a lot of storage, which is great. Yeah, I don't know, super comfortable toilet.
I was surprised because everybody has white ones, and we talk about like the heat and how it stays cool is good in the white, but like we saw your van at night the other day, and it was so much more stealthy than the white ones. Like it didn't draw attention to anything that was on top of it. It was just like a dark fan.
I think it does kind of
blend in. You see a white
at
one,
night.
you're like, oh, there is a fan and a bunch of solar on top. Like it,
Yeah,
or at
if
least
you know what
we
you're
know
looking
what
for.
we're looking for. But I looked at yours and I was like, oh, I can't see anything that she has on top of it, which is cool. I'd never looked at darker vans like that. Oh, we like the silver, obviously, but they're harder to find.
Yeah, and I was just looking for whatever I could find ultimately, and that's kind of what I ended up with. But I have been like really interested, like the more time that goes by and that this becomes a thing, that like I've always done a lot of stealth camping in cities, just like if that's going to be harder over time, because people, know what to look for now, and there are people paying attention. And 2 years ago when I started, like I would meet people and tell them I lived in a van, and they would be like shocked, like what do you mean? And now it's just like, oh cool, you're like living that van life. So people know what they're looking for and see it on the street. And I try and be respectful, like when I am staying in places, just not be like open my doors up and like live in someone's front yard if I'm like parked on a street in a neighborhood or something. So I feel like I'm pretty stealthy, and I've never gotten knocked on. So Never.
Wow. That's cool. You have an awning too, right? How often do you use it?
I definitely use it over the summer when camping. Like it is nice. One of the biggest benefits of it actually is that I can roll it out when it's really sunny outside, and like if the sun is coming from that direction, it basically shades my windows and it keeps it a lot cooler inside.
Okay.
Like I would roll it out and sit outside or like work out under the shade. If it's raining, I'll roll it out like just a little bit if I'm like in a place where I like want the doors to be open or something, and I'll like block the rain from coming in the door. So the awning was actually on the van when I bought it.
Oh, okay.
So I probably wouldn't have added one if that decision was up to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, and you're like, free awning, I'll take it.
I also have a Webasto heater, which was in the van when I bought it as well, and that was another thing that I wouldn't have added myself doing the build, but I will admit that it's been a little bit of a game changer for me, just from like being comfortable, and just like it feels really luxurious when I can turn it on. Like I spent 2 nights in Colorado just like in October that it got down to like 10 degrees at night, and I was like very cozy in the van.
Nice. Where
like my last van we didn't have that, and it got down to 15 degrees at night, and we'd wake up to like, was that our pipes freezing? Like, did that just pop? And I was always fine with that. Like, that's why I didn't think I needed a heater this time around, but it was really hard to get up in the morning to like want to get up and go do anything.
I know that,
especially in the winter when it's like dark too. But
it's hard for you to get up every morning, no matter what.
But especially when it's cold and dark, I'm like, no, it's much nicer under here.
Yeah, it's very cozy under the covers. Yeah, because like bed is great. Like in bed, you're warm, you're cozy. You don't need a heater.
Yeah. We're looking forward to having a separate bed and couch space so that I can stay in bed without being made fun of.
That'll allow you to be able to like hang out and live in this van when you're not just sleeping, both of you together in one bed.
Right. I mean, it's a super. This is for me anyway, adequately spacious place to hang out. But if it's either in bed mode or couch mode,
you can't have both. So
yeah.
One day we'll have separate spaces and we'll feel like so far apart.
What has?
Yeah, you guys are gonna miss each other.
Call for each other across the van. Hey, babe.
How weird would it be if we moved into a bigger van and then suddenly, for some reason, we couldn't tolerate each other?
Then this doesn't work anymore.
That would be really weird.
Colette's superstitious. I have to knock on the ceiling when I say that.
You'd be like, oh, we only work well in tight quarters.
We have to be on top of each other for this to work.
We were in the apartment before.
What has the whole van thing done in terms of your perception or identity, your perceptions of like how to live and stuff? What is it going to inform about your life when you decide to keep the van and move into a building?
I think that it definitely influences. I'm trying to think of the best way to say it, but like my approach to life and the things that I appreciate. Like I think that more so than the solution to like the housing crisis or anything else, that like what this community is creating more of is just like more appreciation and gratefulness in the world, and more appreciation for doing things yourself, for making things, for, you know, experience, like valuing experiences over things. And also just like trying to have a smaller footprint on like what you're doing, and like maybe you don't need all that stuff. Maybe you don't need that 5-bedroom house, or like, you know, I'd be really happy with 1 bedroom, or I'd like to have people come visit and have their own room. But it's just definitely shifted my mindset of like trying to focus on the things I need, not just the things I want, but being able to value my time over what I'm doing. And I think that's still the battle of just like finding the right balance between like work and living and everything in between. I don't want to stop working. Like, I'm not looking to retire. Like, I get a lot of fulfillment out of work, and I'm proud of what I do, and I want to continue to do that. I think I'm still trying to find the way to continue doing that in the way that I want. And being able to build my own business has definitely helped that, because I just have so much more control over it.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely like, I still believe in everything in moderation, and anything in like minimalism or excess isn't necessarily a good thing. So like, I'm not necessarily on the spectrum of full minimalistic lifestyle, but I am definitely a lot less of a consumer than I was before, and I have a lot more appreciation for things.
We were talking about this with Jared, sort of, or some sort of permutation of this with Jared earlier. The thing is, we're doing something that's a little unorthodox, and not that even now that the van life thing is a thing, it's not that common. But the three of us are far from living minimally. You know what I mean? I got internet all the time. I got power all the time. I can power my drone. You know what I mean? Like, this is
we're all sitting in like Mercedes Sprinters. Not Sprinters, but Mercedes, which is just like the privilege to be able to own this car. Like, I understand that.
Right.
And, like, I 100% get the privilege that I have in my van. Like, it's really nice. And I had the ability to like put as much money into it as I did. And I'm really thankful for that. And the coolest, like, the one thing I've always thought about that is the coolest thing about van life is that there are so many people doing it from all different coming from all different kinds of places, doing it in a different way. It's like none of those ways are wrong, and all of those different people can like come together and still like have so much in common, whether it's the person who has to buy a $3,000 van because that's the only thing they can afford, or that they get to buy a $30,000 van, or like $150,000. Like, there's such a range, and as long as no one's out there being like, this is the only way to do it, like this is the right way, and what you're doing is wrong, then I have respect for like anyone out there doing it.
So this is like old hat to you, basically, at this point. Like you've been doing this for long enough that maybe you're not discovering things as rapidly as you used to. But are there like hacks to living in a van that you have found recently, or you remember like discovering and being like super excited about?
I mean, hacks for me are like the things that help me balance like working and living in the van. So like finding public libraries is a better, cheaper way to get internet than like going to coffee shops. Or I've kind of given up on like, I really relied on a lot of the like camping apps when I first started, of just like, where can I sleep, like where it's going to be okay. And I just kind of like go figure it out on my own now, which is just kind of, I guess, something that's come from 2 years of just like doing it. But I don't know. I mean, I can't really think of anything.
What's your strategy in terms of parking?
It depends where I'm at. So like if I'm in a city or an urban area, I typically sleep in neighborhoods. So I'll just like look on Google Maps and try and find like a quiet street. Ideally it's like in front of an apartment building or some type of part of a street that's not in front of a house. When I'm like traveling or like driving days and stuff, I'll sleep in parking lots. Like I'll sleep in hotel parking lots, I'll sleep in Walmart parking lots, just like whatever's most convenient at that point. Honestly, to me, it just like doesn't really matter where I'm at. Like I'm in my van, I close my curtains, like everything's kind of buttoned up. It's like I could be anywhere. So I do spend a lot of time like in parking lots and other places. And that doesn't bother me. Like, I don't feel like I need to pull up at the beach and, like, have a view every day. Like, it's nice when it does happen, but that's not usually the reality of, like, what you're doing.
Right.
I find a lot of mornings I wake up and I'm like, where are we? I don't even remember where we're parked.
I know. I have that same thought. Like, you wake up in bed. It's like, which direction am I facing right now? Like, what did I park? Like, what was I doing when I went to park last night?
I'm like, what part of the, especially since we have our spots here in Encinitas, I'm like, wait, which one of our spots are we in? Like, where were we last night? And I like forget, because you're in here and like, you don't know where you don't know that the beach is right there.
I feel the same thing in the morning a lot of the time.
It's the same right now as it was in Montreal.
You
know?
It's the
exact same
thing.
thing.
I'm like, where are we right now? It's just funny.
And I feel like the more comfortable that I get, just like with the van and what I'm doing, it's like the more terrified that I'm afraid that I'm just gonna like go park it somewhere one day and like forget where it's at. Like I was talking to you about your car because I do that. I would for sure just lose it constantly.
Oh, I have many times.
We got to pay attention to the 72-hour rule because you can't leave a car in a place for more than 72 hours.
Like, I just think I should probably go check on it because I don't remember where it is or what's going on with it.
I was thinking, I don't know why this came to me in the morning, but like, I think it was a couple days ago. I was going through that. I was laying in bed, awake, early in the morning, and the concept of feng shui occurred to me, right?
Okay.
And so I haven't really studied feng shui very much, but it's a system of the most ergonomic and best energy flow and balanced way to lay out your place. And I think I remember reading that your head is supposed to be facing north in your bed. Your head is supposed to be the north end of the bed.
To face the direction. Like most rooms face a direction.
Yeah. And we're fucking just driving around and like here today, here tomorrow. Like,
some days we're feng shui, some days we're not. Depends which direction you're parked.
Half of the van was feng shui today, half of it will be feng shui tomorrow.
Sometimes you're on a little bit of a hill, sometimes you're pointed in one direction.
It's working out. It's okay.
And like I think we've said a lot. It's just like you get used to being a little uncomfortable, and I think that's really important in life. And I think it pushes you a little bit to like realize that you don't always need to be comfortable. And that's maybe a good thing.
It's so fascinating to me how malleable we are, you know. And I keep saying, apologies to anybody who actually listens to all the podcasts because I've said this in 7 of them probably, but I feel like one of the big things that that is one of the commonalities of van people is that we are not only okay with, but sort of searching to get out of our comfort zones a lot. And I remember when you're talking about like, looking at the camping apps and stuff, I don't find those super reliable so far anyway, especially because everything's constantly changing and in flux and stuff. And I was driving. Colette wasn't with me because she had to be working, and I went to South Carolina for Christmas. And I was driving. I drove through Texas in one day, the wide way, which is like ridiculous. I drove probably
so far.
I probably drove 20 hours that day or something. But I just like, I want to get the fuck out of here. And so I drove into Shreveport, Louisiana, and I actually I stopped at a rest stop on the way into Shreveport, and I got the Zillow app out because I was like, I don't want to stay in a super ritzy neighborhood or a super sketchy neighborhood tonight.
Looking at the values of homes.
So I'm looking at the values of homes to stay in a middle class neighborhood where I can pull my little Mercedes up and nobody's going to be like, but now it's almost to the point where if somebody asks me for stealth parking advice, I've got to go backwards because it's almost visceral now.
Yeah.
Like I can look at a map now and be like, oh, this is the neighborhood where I'm going.
Yeah.
Just because of the based on where the streets intersect and stuff. And if I look at the satellite view, I can figure out, oh, this is the place where I want to be.
Yeah.
And as long as you pull in and you don't like spill out of the van.
Totally. Like if you're pulling in quiet and no one can tell that anyone's in here, you're generally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like also, I guess the thing that I forgot that I honestly use as the biggest resource now when like finding places to stay is other people. Because I feel like I do have a community of people that I'm pretty close with that I talk with a lot that have also been on the road for like over a year. So it's like someone's been everywhere. And like in cities and stuff, I don't really care as much about like finding a recommendation of where to sleep unless I like really am having trouble finding something. But if I'm going to a place like Moab or like somewhere where there's a lot of camping, then I'll like reach out to someone and look for recommendations. And
either you know somebody who's been there, or we found this. We would just put these requests out on Instagram.
Yeah, I've definitely used that too.
A lot of times you know somebody who knows somebody who's in that area too. You just don't. You haven't. Isn't on your radar yet.
Totally. Yeah, and it's been interesting also just like being solo now. I think I'm just a lot more conscious of what I do put on social media and just like locations and where I'm at. I like usually don't post things until after I'm leaving or if like
this won't come out for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I just mean more like specific, I guess. Like I do a lot of Instagram stories and like you could tell like where I'm at. Right. So it's just more like stuff like
How is that? Do you feel comfortable?
I do. I feel really safe. I've never felt unsafe in the van. I'm not like a person that worries a lot or like has ever gotten scared easily. So I think that because I had the experience traveling with someone else in the van as my first lead-in, that I got comfortable with it, that when I did go to do it solo, it was easy. And that was kind of a unintentional benefit, I guess, of the way that worked out, because I could totally see how you get nervous and be on edge a little bit, like especially you'd never done it before and you didn't know where you were going. But like by the time I started doing it solo, it was just like I kind of knew my way around, the way it worked.
Well, this cheeky boy will tell people in bars where we're sleeping, and I'm like, how about we don't do that?
This is what street we're on.
He'd be like, oh yeah, the van's over there right now. We're over here hanging out, and I'm like, no. Let's not do that. Especially strangers, you never know.
I'll own it.
With strangers too. Yeah, you do have to be careful.
And he's in here by himself.
That dog is so sweet. But if somebody fucked with us, he would murder them, dude. I mean, really. Have you seen the way he acts? I just think
it's a good practice not to tell strangers where we're sleeping.
I think you're right.
I
think you're right.
I still believe in like the greater sense of things that like if someone's looking to break into a vehicle, they're not looking to break into one that someone's in. So like the idea of the camper van and the break-in, like you have to be careful obviously of like knowing if anyone's watching you or like if you're leaving it for a long time, then kind of knowing where it's at. But the idea overnight, I just, like, have never really felt worried about someone, like, trying to break in. And if they are, that's probably because they don't think someone's in here. But it's like, the idea that this is becoming more of a thing actually works in reverse on that, because people are going to be like, oh, there's probably someone in there. Like, I'm not going to mess with that.
It's a good point. I just think it's a good, fair practice.
No, I'm not defending. I'm not defending my.
Just get a few beers and you're just so loose with everything.
Like,
I trust everybody.
Yeah, and I am generally really trusting too. And like, you get a lot of people that like, you know, come by your van when you're just like out or like somewhere, and they're just like curious, or they're like, oh, you know, I have a friend who's doing this. Like, it's so cool that you're doing it. Or, oh, I would really want to do this. Like, can I look at what like your setup? And I've always just like been super friendly with those people, and I'm like happy to show off my van to people. And I actually had my first instance just the other day in one of the Planet Fitness parking lots where I had like my door open and I was like getting ready to go into the gym, and this guy kind of like came up, and I was just like kind of curious, but then like really kind of awkward, and then it got like kind of creepy where he was like, oh, like, what are you doing? And I said it, and like immediately after I said it, I like knew it was a mistake of just, I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, I live out of here, like blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, that is a mistake to say to a stranger in general. And that's usually been my rule of like traveling alone. It's just like never saying that I'm a solo traveler that lives in a van to like people that I don't know, because it just feels like an unsafe thing. I was like,
my really buff.
Yeah. And it was like the first time that I said, I was like, how do I, okay. And then I was just kind of like, I gotta go, you know? And he was like he was like hitting on me, like trying to ask me out. I was just like, this is weird. Yeah. But that was like the first time that had ever happened in a weird, almost creepy way.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. My favorite that people do here is the stare walk by. They're just they slowly walk past the van and stare really hard, and you're kind of sitting there like you feel like you're in a zoo or something. Yeah. Like, I would rather them say something than just like stare as they walk past, because you're like, hello. Do you want me to do a trick? I don't know.
See, all of that shit
curious.
just tickles me.
See, because you like attention.
I know.
I don't like to be stared at. Maybe it's a female thing.
It's another
usually if I'm
white male privilege thing.
It's creepy, and I don't like being stared at.
I mean, if I'm like in my van, I almost always have the doors closed, like especially if I don't want to be bothered, if I don't want to feel like people are looking, because I feel like if you open up your door and you're hanging out, like despite the fact that this is our house, like I feel like, you're also gonna have to expect that you're gonna get all that with it.
I either want them open because of weather, or he has them open.
Fresh air is ours.
No, I mean, it's a tiny van thing, because it's nice when you open up the doors, it just feels more open, which is a nice thing to do. But it's just kind of funny.
There's a benefit to it.
Back to the malleability thing, because I have friends of different age groups who live in vans, and I've found that some people are I know older adult men who like have sort of internalized the stigma, and B, are skittish about parking places and like scared of it.
Okay.
And they're not to speak for them or anything, but my impression is that they're not worried about some sort of violence or theft or something. They're worried about the perception and the dogma
of just living in a van.
Living in a van down by the river, being homeless. You know, even though these people that I'm talking about are doing that electively as well. You know?
And I'm sure it's our privilege that makes me say that I've never been worried about that. Like, I've never had to worry about that, and I get that I'm lucky because of it. But yeah, I mean, I just think that in general, the people that are living this lifestyle, this type of people that just care less about what other people think. So that's just like not necessarily what they get hung up on.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, we've kept you here for a long time. Do you think we did it?
I hope so.
Is there anything else that is like a burning, like, oh my God, I had this fucking zinger and I didn't get it out?
Oh, that really good joke that I had like an hour ago and now I forgot it.
Oh no.
What do you think, bud? You got anything else?
So many things.
Yeah?
She's going to sing for the next one.
I forgot to.
I forgot to. All right, let's go get some tacos.
Tacos!
All right, guys, we did it. That was episode 40 of From the Van, a good round number. We had a great time hanging out with Megan, both in and outside of this conversation. Thank you so much. Hope that you enjoyed it and appreciate you for sticking around if you've made it this long. And come back next Tuesday. We'll have another episode for you of From the Van.